Welcome back, Guardians. My name is Samlab. Here we are. Finally, we made it. Bungie is ready to talk about the 9, and I'm seriously excited. If you're new to the channel, some of you may be asking, what is the 9? And well, to put it simply, they are a form of dark matter. Dark matter energy given consciousness on a somewhat paracausal level, albeit a lower level of power, but still tremendous nonetheless. Now, I know you've heard many different opinions already, and excitedly I'd like to add some additional thoughts to the mix. Why is Edge of Fate such a big deal? It's a big deal because we've had the story of the 9 strung along for quite literally years, since as far back as Season of the Drifter, where Destiny 2 fans got introduced to the Drifter for the first time officially, and also the 9 officially, and there are a ton of different cutscenes and different lore breakdowns. I've done a ton of videos on the 9 myself before in the last few years. You will see other videos from people such as like Mylan Games and My Name is Bife and Ives, and the list is endless of individuals who have gone over the lore of the 9, albeit I'm a little bit biased to my own content because I think I've covered it in a unique way. I'm just kidding. But that's really why this is important. So the 9 represent a potential different shape. Wink wink, nudge nudge. And for those of you who read the lore, you know what I meant by that. Now, what's really interesting about the 9's lore is how expansive it is. This is a dense amount of narrative material. There is a lot to play with here, and the scope is huge in terms of who and what the 9 represent. Now, the 9 were brought into consciousness through dark matter particles being stretched back and forth between the planetary alignments. There are loops and channels of essentially cosmic dust that move between different planets in our solar system. So around Earth, around the Moon, around Jupiter, around Uranus. Think of these channels like tidal currents. Currents under the sea, you know, those invisible currents that are always there, that if you accidentally get drawn into one, it's probably game over for you. But those who know how to swim those channels know what it's all about. Now, I'm not about to go into detail about who or what I think is able to navigate these channels, but the 9's consciousness was born from moving through these currents, and essentially, lore describes it as dark dust being pulled back and forth. And the moment the Traveler arrived in our solar system is what gave birth to these 9 different currents becoming conscious, becoming sentient. And so, from as far back as Season of the Drifter, through Season of Arrivals, through Prophecy Dungeon, all the way up till now, we have been hearing from the 9, and their plan is simple. And there are 2 groups of the 9. One is a faction of 5. They are all focused on supporting the light. They are pro-light, okay? And then there is the faction of 4, who are all for the dark. They when you talk about dark matter, they are like, they're all about that. And they, I would say, straddle the line very close to the thinking and the mindset of the Winnower. Big time. And there's even lore entries that pretty much dial in deep on this. Literally. Like, they set up some of the worst moments in Destiny's history for humanity suffering and Guardians alike. And I have a video that I'm working on that will go into a lot of that stuff more. It's a big one. It's an undertaking, but we're going to take a crack at it, and hopefully it will provide some fun and exciting context as we get ready to head into Edge of Fate. So the next thing that I want to really touch on is the fact that Codename Apollo is the Edge of Fate expansion. This is a huge deal, okay? We're talking about the next major jumping in point as Guardians to the story of Destiny. Post Final Shape, Lightfall, Witch Queen, Beyond Light, and everything that came before that. And I'm even amazed that I remembered all the names of those expansions without having to write any of that down. So I'm giving myself a pat on the back. But Bife recently discussed this in his video, and I thought it was a sound analysis, and I really agreed with him that it's really important for Bungie that this juncture, that this turning point into the future of Destiny has a sound new player experience. And I don't know how they're going to do it, but that potentially having to do that with a story like the 9 kind of makes me break out in cold sweats, because it is meaty. To effectively tell the story of the Edge of Fate, it would require a pretty significant recap, and we'd have to go back. Like, we'd have to go back to Season of the Drifter and bring all that content into context, and Prophecy Dungeon itself. And so I think it's very clever that they're using Rite of the 9 to hopefully do that. This is me speculating for the most part, but the assumption is that Rite of the 9 will be that onboarding process. Smooth recaps where we have been with the 9, what happened before, where they're headed, and what's currently happening. I know I said that in a kind of confusing order, but stick with me here. The next thing that I want to talk about is how the story unfolds. It's going to be really interesting. We had this new lore entry from the 9. There's absolutely nothing new about this other than us seeing a further extension of this splitting of factions, but on a different level. And it's really interesting to see how the narrative team have taken it now, where it seems like the 9 are literally disagreeing with each other, not just one faction versus the other. We're now down to singular disagreement in each 9 entity being like, hey, we need to stick together. No, we don't. I want to do it my way. I want to do it this way. And the defeat of the Witness was the birth of whatever is going to happen next with the 9. And there are 2 plot points that come into play here. One is that the 9 are able to control dark matter, and the second is that they are able to control the Taken. And both of those things are scary, and there's been a lot of overlap and discussion about who is this entity that has been controlling these Undying, I believe it is, or Divine Taken, who are technically a new faction, but not quite, but repurposed. So there's no telling who that is. It could literally be anybody. We still have a lot of different enemies on a smaller scale level who could pose a threat if they gain enough power to take over. But that's a whole separate video, and I don't want us to get bogged down by that. But this point right now is Frontiers. This is the next chapter of Destiny. So if there is ever a point to get excited, this is it. And I'm really happy that I chose when I did to jump back into Destiny lore. And it's funny to me because this happened before. So I took a break from playing Destiny way back when, in the Destiny 2 Year 1 vanilla era, and that was during Curse of Osiris, because I played through the campaign of Curse of Osiris. I was like, okay, no, not interested. Then we had Rasputin expansion, and I was like, oh, I'm in. Sentient AI defending humanity, let's go. There's a lot I have to say about this. So, and it was a good moment to come back in. Then we had a little lull. There was Season of Dawn, which was all about the Vex and Osiris and Saint 14. Wonderful. Then after that, we had, I want to say Season of the Drifter, or Season of the Drifter might have been post Forsaken. I'm not certain, but pretty much everything from Season of the Drifter, and then I think it was Season of Opulence, yes, with Callus. Those were the seasons that I came back for. Those were the expansions that I came back for, and they literally changed everything. And so here we are again, the Edge of Fate. This is a big one, and I'm really excited to see how this plays out. So what's really important here also for us is to consider the wider universe, and I want to drop a word, a name, that I haven't heard anybody mention so far from all the videos that I've watched, and that is the Jovians. All of you know I have literally preached about the concept of Destiny's wider universe and the Jovians becoming more relevant later down the line in Destiny. If there's ever a point for that to happen, it would be now. Because the Nine's territory, the area that they occupy, is the Jovian system. And this is a really good place to push us out into the furthest reaches of Sol, of the Sol system, solar system, for those of you who don't know what Sol is. And give us that taste, that new frontiers juice, before we really go deep into, okay, our solar system's compromised, we need to bounce out. I mentioned this in my previous video from last week, the Echoes. The Echoes are the craziest, wildest idea that the narrative team have given us so far, in the sense of that these are seeds of potential. They are literally what the Traveler does. And if you go back and read The Gardener, or The Garden, can't remember the exact name of the lore entry, it talks about the Gardener pressing seeds into the wet loam of space, essentially. So it's my understanding that Echoes are seeds of potential. Now before, they were only seeds of potential of light. Now, they are seeds of potential of light and dark. What happens if the Nine get hold of an Echo? The last 3 episodes, we have seen what happens when some entity gets hold of the Echo, like literal impossibilities begin to happen. And so, from my understanding, there were several Echoes that were essentially planted by the Traveler of pure potential. Okay? And this pure potential is essentially what the hull is on the back of Drifter's spaceship. So if the Nine were to get hold of an Echo, okay guys, this is purely speculation, and I understand if you feel like there isn't enough information for us to go off here. But I'm putting the thought out there. So I've mentioned the Jovians, I've mentioned the Echo, and I've mentioned the Nine. There are, if my math serves me correctly, 4 more remaining Echo? Because 4, 5, 6, 7, yeah, there were 7 Echo that escaped, or that was sent out by the Traveler, so we put it that way, because the Traveler does things that we never understand, so I don't think we can assume that the Traveler wasn't in control of these Echoes escaping. Wink wink, nudge nudge. So we have 4 remaining Echo that are unaccounted for, that have gone to trajectories that we don't have surveillance in. Because of course, the terrestrial array, which is in the Cosmodrome, has been somewhat inactive. Air quotes. So we will see what's going to happen. I really hope that the terrestrial array comes back into play. I really hope that the Cosmodrome is rebolstered. We know that there's the potential of this because we've heard Ada 1 discuss it. It's in lore. If you want to hear more about this, you can go back and watch my Frontiers video. pretty much touches on a lot of these points that I've just mentioned, but I will be going over these points again in this mega long video that I'm doing, which could potentially be 2 hours long at this rate. I don't know how long it's going to be, but it's going to be a big one. But here are these are the things that we can hopefully look forward to. Now, we know that we have the Emissary of the Nine, who is, I would assume, on the side of the light side of the Nine. She could be used as a way to bring in new Guardians to Destiny and give them like a background context on who the Nine are, because we haven't really heard from the Emissary since, again, Season of the Drifter, and possibly Prophecy Dungeon as well. There is also the fact that Savathun and her eventual tie-in to the greater story, because she has used things like the Event Horizon. She has talked to Lavinia, who was a Last City Cryptarch, who knows all about the Nine because she jumped through the Cocytus gates, and the Nine basically spoke to her, and Orin, who is the Emissary of the Nine, told Lavinia everything about the Nine and Marasov's conversations with them, because Lavinia is also an Awoken, and the Emissary, whose original name was Orin, was also an Awoken, Guardian specifically. So there's that. Now, Frontiers launching into the future of Destiny and exploring the wider universe is going to be big, and I've mentioned the Echoes. I've talked about the factions of the Nine and how the first 5 are on the side of the light, and the progression of keeping Guardians protected so that they don't lose access to the light, and the last 4 are essentially on the side of darkness because they want to use whatever means possible to bring life into existence, and they've done this using the Cocytus gates, and they've tried to make life and turn dark matter into physical matter, and they've had somewhat success, and so we don't know if they've continued to do that. The lore hasn't mentioned anything about this, but it is a fascinating and like potentially exciting premise that they may have done something that it has yielded great results, and we're about to find out about what that is during the Edge of Fate. The last point I will land on is the Drifter and potentially Eris Morn and potentially Mara Sov, because if there's anybody or character in Destiny that knows as much about the Nine as anybody else, it would be Queen Mara Sov, followed by the Drifter, followed by Eris Morn, because Eris Morn has a close relationship with Mara Sov, and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of like key characters that we should be seeing during this season. I would assume that Commander Sloane would show up at some point too, with her now newly retrofit taken power, and so yeah, it's a really exciting point, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how the narrative team handle this. I have posted about this on Blue Sky a number of times, and even like at Julia Nardine and Allison, about how excited I am to see like what they've done as a narrative team, because guys, this is, look, if you want some really chunky, meaty, like good, more questions than answers lore, it's the Nine, and I really hope that that theme continues through. So these are my thoughts. You all can let me know what you think in the comment section down below, and we can discuss it and see what is likely to happen next in Destiny. But I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, be sure to leave a comment, like the video, consider subscribing to find out when my next lore video goes live. Remember that no matter what you're facing at this moment in time, you can do all things. Stay safe and Godspeed.